At last, our dream of building a new, spacious house had come to fruition, and my excitement was bubbling over as I envisioned beginning a fresh chapter in our lives. However, just as we were about to celebrate, an unexpected twist occurred. My in-laws showed up unannounced. With a firm tone, they stated, "We'll be moving in here," and asked that my parents leave the property. I was taken aback and turned to my husband for support, but all he could muster was a deep breath, followed by, "Please do as they ask. Let your parents know gently." As I watched my in-laws eagerly unpack and settle into what was supposed to be our new home, I felt a mix of disbelief and frustration. "Do you realize this is our house?" I asked, hoping they might acknowledge the misunderstanding. "My name is Tiffany. I'm 32, and I've been enjoying a loving marriage with my husband, Jesse, for 4 years. We don't have children yet, but our life is filled with affection and mutual support. Recently, I've been concerned about my aging parents. Their declining mobility has been weighing on my mind, prompting me to suggest that Jesse and I move in with them to provide care." Jesse agreed without hesitation, appreciating the dual benefits of our presence, offering them support and giving us peace of mind. "It's a win-win situation," he had said, and I was deeply thankful for his understanding and support. We contemplated this plan, but logistics proved difficult. My family's home is quite a distance from the city, complicating our commutes as neither of us drives. Additionally, relocating my parents to our small city rental wasn't a viable option, especially as it was already cramped for just the two of us, and contemplating future children would only exacerbate the space issue. Faced with these challenges, I proposed a bold solution. Why not build a new home that could accommodate everyone comfortably? Jesse's face lit up at the idea. "That's a fantastic idea," he exclaimed. Energized by his enthusiasm, we embarked on the journey of planning and building a home that would suit all our needs. When I shared the news with my parents about building a home that would accommodate everyone, they initially felt a twinge of guilt for the inconvenience. However, once I laid out our reasons, their apprehension turned into excitement, which brought immense relief and joy to me. Later, my husband and I visited a real estate agency to iron out the final details of our project. We prioritized finding locations near hospitals to ensure easy access to medical care for my parents and close to train stations to simplify our daily commutes. During our discussions about the house's specifics, I noticed my parents were a bit hesitant about the idea of moving in with us. Thankfully, my husband came through with several insightful suggestions that helped smooth out the planning process. As we progressed, our dream home started to take form, and the excitement was palpable. After extensive discussions and a lot of online research, we finalized our plans and were ready to start consulting with builders. "We're nearly there with the preparations," I remarked, acknowledging how building a home was proving more complex than anticipated. "Balancing this with work certainly makes progress slow," my husband added, reflecting on the challenges we faced. We invested considerable time and effort into our plans, and the results were immensely satisfying. The blueprint we meticulously crafted far exceeded our expectations. We consulted various real estate agents and conducted thorough online research to get to this point. Now, all that was left was to eagerly await the completion of our house. It would take some time, but the excitement and anticipation were limitless. However, as the project advanced, my in-laws began to show increased interest. "Dear, we heard you're building a new house, is that right?" they asked one day. "Yes, that's correct. We're aiming to finish it by the end of the year," I replied. "How wonderful. I'm so impressed with Jesse's efforts and how he keeps us updated with all the details," they exclaimed, showing genuine interest in our endeavor. When my mother-in-law expressed a sudden enthusiasm to visit us soon, I was taken aback but agreed happily. Over the upcoming weekend, my husband and I planned a trip to their place. They greeted us with warm smiles, and the conversation quickly turned to our new home project. "Building a brand new home is such a joyous event, isn't it?" my father-in-law remarked, his tone reflective as if he was recalling his own experiences. "Yes, we're very excited," I replied. "We hope the construction wraps up smoothly and quickly so we can move in as soon as possible." We all shared a laugh over the exciting journey ahead. Curious, my mother-in-law asked, "Could we see the blueprints?" In response, my husband pulled out his phone and showed them a photo of the design. "Oh, it's quite spacious," she observed, "and so many rooms." "Yes, well, we'll be living with my parents, so we needed the extra space," I explained. Both in-laws looked at my husband in disbelief. "You're all moving in together?" they asked. "Yes," my husband confirmed. "Since my parents are getting older, we suggested living together, which led us to decide to build a new house." "Really? I see," they responded, their tone shifting subtly, revealing a hint of discomfort. Wanting to ease the tension, I quickly changed the subject. "How have you both been? How's your health?" "We're doing well, no major changes, just the usual routine," they replied, but curiosity about our plans lingered. "Tell us more about the new house. Which room will your parents be using?" they inquired. As my husband pointed to the blueprint to explain, I noticed the mood had indeed shifted. He seemed oblivious to the change, but I could see that their expressions had tensed up. Despite this, we continued discussing the layout, hopeful that our shared excitement for the new beginnings would eventually put everyone at ease. When my in-laws learned that my parents would be moving in with us, I worried they might feel like we were giving my parents special treatment. Despite my slight guilt, I hoped they would understand our decision, considering my parents' needs. However, it was becoming apparent that they were finding it hard to accept. The construction of our new home was moving forward smoothly, and with each visit, we could see it nearing completion. My husband often expressed his excitement about moving in quickly, but, like him, I was torn between eagerness for our new start and a desire for everything to be just right. Halfway through the construction, my parents came to see the progress. Their delight and gratitude made me deeply thankful that we could provide this new home for them. Meanwhile, I noticed that my husband had been visiting his parents almost every weekend recently. "Are you planning to visit your parents again this weekend?" I asked him. "Yeah, I am," he replied. I remarked on his frequent visits since the beginning of the year, to which he responded, "I want to show my appreciation to them as well. That's why I've been making an effort to visit them on my days off." Understanding his intentions, I asked, "Should I come along?" I was concerned that his parents might feel left out or disappointed, possibly hoping that they would be the ones moving in with us. I thought visiting them might be a good gesture of goodwill. However, my husband reassured me, "It's all right, I can manage it on my own," and left for his parents' home. I decided to respect his choice and promised to support him as needed. Time flew by, and soon our new house was finally ready. On a moving day, we loaded the car with boxes and set off to our new home, bubbling with excitement and ready to start this new chapter together. As we pulled up to our new home, the sight of it was so breathtaking that I couldn't help but exclaim, "Wow, our new home!" It symbolized the beginning of a brand new chapter. I found myself daydreaming about our future life there, imagining cooking meals while watching my husband play with our future child in the yard or hosting family barbecues. These thoughts heightened my excitement even further. Just then, my parents called. They were supposed to move in with us, but informed us that they'd be delayed due to traffic. They urged us to start settling in, but I insisted, "We'll wait for you," planning to share this sentiment with my husband. To my surprise, however, his parents showed up unexpectedly. I stared in disbelief as they got out of their car, all smiles, and approached us. "Look at this magnificent house. It's impressive enough to show off to our friends," they exclaimed. "Yes, it's the house that Jesse and I carefully planned," I replied. "Tiffany, you have excellent taste," my mother-in-law complimented. "Well, I suppose I can give her credit for that," I said, managing a thankful nod. To my astonishment, they began unloading a considerable amount of luggage from their car. Baffled, I quickly asked, "Mother-in-law, Father-in-law, why do you have so much stuff? What are you planning to do? Their reply caught me completely off guard. What do you mean? We're moving our things into this house, they said. You're planning to live here starting today? But you'll need to ask your parents to leave, they continued. Why are you doing this? I asked, my voice tinged with disbelief and frustration. My mother-in-law then explained, as a new bride, it's customary to prioritize your husband's family. The unexpected twist left me struggling to reconcile the joy of our new beginning with the sudden challenge of balancing family expectations and our carefully laid plans. Feeling a wave of emotions, I turned to my husband for support when his parents declared that they should be the ones moving into the new house. Taking a deep breath, he told me, "Just let your parents know gently." I felt a rush of disbelief. This house was intended for me and my parents. I can't accept this decision, I protested. His response came with visible irritation. Didn't my mom just explain that it's natural for a wife to prioritize her husband's family? We can address your parents' situation later. I was stunned. It was painfully clear that my husband was either under heavy influence from his parents or shared their views, which were now glaringly apparent. Come on, help with the moving, he urged as his parents began unloading their belongings, despite my parents and I not having set foot inside the house yet. Oh, how wonderful! The interior is just splendid, they exclaimed, eagerly exploring the house. I confronted them. Do you even know whose house this is? What? They responded, clearly taken aback. After a brief pause, they turned to face me, asserting, Whose house? Of course, it's Jesse's house. Are you suggesting you have a claim to it? Since you and Jesse are living here, and he's put so much into building this house, you have no right to make any claims without letting us explain first. It seemed my in-laws had jumped to conclusions and were quick to place blame on me, indicating that my husband hadn't shared the full details about our financial contributions to the house. Why would your parents live in Jesse's house in the first place? They questioned. Yes, it's strange. Poor Jesse having such a demanding wife and parents, they added scornfully. I reached my breaking point. Why am I being criticized for their misunderstandings? If you intend to live here, then Jesse should compensate for the amount spent, I argued. I've contributed to this house, I asserted, facing their disbelief. How much are you claiming to have paid? It must be a small amount, maybe $100, they mocked. My husband, looking uncomfortable, remained silent. I turned to him, challenging, Are you being honest? How high and mighty do you think you are? He hesitated, unsure of what to say next. What are you insinuating? My mother-in-law demanded, her tone authoritative, noticing my husband's reluctance to address the situation. Deciding to clarify things once and for all, I spoke up. I paid for this house entirely with my savings. If you plan to live here, I expect repayment of $460,000 for the cost of the house. My in-laws were visibly shocked. Their mouths hung open and their eyes widened in disbelief. They quickly turned to my husband for confirmation. Jesse, is this true? Did Tiffany buy this house? They asked, struggling to grasp the reality of the situation. My husband nodded a slight affirmation. Yes, Tiffany bought the house. She was promoted recently and now earns more than I do. He then admitted something more personal. But even though I've been working for a long time and graduated from a prestigious university, I made a significant mistake at work. I can't be promoted and even had a pay cut. Now I'm earning as much as a new employee. The room fell silent as they processed this news. We never imagined Jesse would be in such a situation. After a moment of stunned silence, their attitude toward me shifted dramatically. Tiffany, we're truly sorry for our earlier comments. We misunderstood everything. Please forgive us and let us stay in this house, they pleaded, their tone full of regret and apology. My husband also joined in, bowing deeply. Please, it's my fault for not telling you sooner. Let us stay here with you. Their sudden change in demeanor and plea for forgiveness left me completely taken aback. Despite their apologies, I stood firm. No matter how much you plead, I can't accept this. I built this house to live with my parents. If that's not possible, there's no point in keeping this house. if you want to live here, you'll need to pay me $460,000. We don't have that kind of money, they replied, their faces falling. Then it seems you'll need to find somewhere else to go, I said, resolute in my decision. Wait, they interjected. We sold our previous home and moved out. When my in-laws realized they could potentially be evicted from our new house, they became desperate. Tiffany, please let us stay. Your parents can live with us too, they pleaded. The thought of living under one roof with both sets of parents seemed unmanageable to me. I can't agree to that. If you sold your house, you must have some funds left. Why not use that to find a flat? I asked. At this, tears welled up in their eyes. The truth is, we lost a significant amount in a bad investment. The money from selling our house and our retirement savings went toward paying off that debt. We have nothing left. I'm retired and my wife has been a housewife for years, so she can't work at this age. You're our only hope, they confessed. Despite their heartfelt plea, I felt that the situation was a result of their financial mismanagement. If you need help, shouldn't you be asking your son for support? I'm not in a position to support strangers, I replied. Aren't we family too? They asked, their voices laden with emotion. That's too much to ask. Can't you at least help us a little? They continued to plead. I was firm. It's impossible. I can't even fathom living with someone whose family is trying to take over our home. In a moment of intense frustration, I blurted out, Jesse, let's get a divorce. What? Wait a minute. I can't even think about a divorce. I'm sorry, but I can't forgive this. Please leave right now, I demanded. The mention of divorce sent my husband into a panic while his parents continued to plead. However, my resolve had hardened. If you plan to stay here, I'll call the police, I warned, prompting my in-laws to leave in fear. My husband, dismayed, protested. I'm still your husband. I should have the right to stay here. If you insist, I'll take legal action, I replied firmly. Realizing that a lawsuit could jeopardize his job, he quickly gathered his belongings and left. Shortly after he departed, my parents arrived, confused by his absence. They were shocked when I explained the situation, but expressed their gratitude. Thank you for standing up for us, they said. I wished my husband had been more understanding, but I was relieved to have distanced myself from such a selfish in-law family, especially before our child was born. The divorce process proceeded smoothly, and I soon found myself single again. Now, I enjoyed peaceful days in our newly built house with my parents, grateful for the tranquility that had replaced the chaos.
I'll stay here for a few more days. It's so convenient at your place, declared my mother-in-law, who had shown up uninvited the day before. I froze, unsure of how to respond, while my husband smiled as if this was the most natural thing in the world. It would be nice if you stayed, Mom, he agreed. I guess you're right, I replied, though my dissatisfaction was clear. Little did I know, the consequences of her stay would shatter everything I thought I knew about my family. My name is Paula Swift. I am 30 years old and work for a major shoe store. Actually, my position at the store is assistant manager. Originally, there was no system to have an assistant manager, but since the current manager was promoted to area manager, I suddenly became assistant manager because I had been with the company for a long time. I thought being an assistant manager would be easy, but it's a totally different story. Although my official position is assistant manager, I am a candidate for the next store manager. It is very difficult because the training and education I receive are for management level responsibilities. Since I'm so busy, even though I just got married, it's hard to find time to relax with my husband. Still, I am happy, because if I become a store manager, my income will increase and become more stable. I was even surprised when I saw my first paycheck as an assistant manager. Sitting in the living room, drinking coffee and looking at my paycheck, I thought about these things. My husband, Zane, is a company employee. He is also 30 years old, the same age as me. He doesn't usually work overtime, but as the end of the month approaches, he comes home late. Today was one of those days. I happened to get home early, so I started cooking dinner right away while waiting for the washing machine to finish the leftover laundry from yesterday. Zane used to eat out a lot before we got married, but since we started dating, he's always complimented my cooking, saying how much he likes it and how delicious it is. That's why I do my best to make meals he'll enjoy. As I was doing the house chores, the washing machine finished, and at the same time, the doorbell rang. I sighed as I went to check who it was. "Oh, it's Thora," I muttered. My mother-in-law often visits without any prior notice. "I'm coming," I said as I opened the door. Thora stood there looking slightly angry. "What is the meaning of this? I'm your husband's family and you make me wait," she exclaimed. "I'm sorry. I didn't hear the doorbell because the washing machine was signaling me that it finished," I explained. "Oh my! Why are you doing laundry at this hour?" she demanded. "I had a lot of things to wash yesterday," I replied nervously. "There's no need for excuses. So, is dinner ready?" my mother-in-law continued. "Yes, I made leftovers from yesterday and added a few new dishes," I answered. "I see. I'll make sure they're what my son would love," she said, walking in. This was how Thora would often show up: eat dinner, stay for a while, and leave. Zane didn't seem to mind, but I honestly wished she wouldn't come unannounced. I wanted to tell her directly, but I didn't feel comfortable enough with her to do so. "Oh, Thora, if you had called earlier, I could have prepared something special for the three of us," I said, trying to sound polite. "I just wanted to see how you two live your lives together," she replied casually. "Oh, and I brought a little side dish. That should be enough, right?" "Thank you," I said. Thora started eating the chicken stew I made, commenting on its taste, while also helping herself to the store-bought side dishes she had brought. Most of them were discounted items, and while I didn't mind the idea of discounted food, her choices were always questionable. Feeling stressed, I sent an SOS message to Zane, who had told me to reach out if I had any issues. Minutes later, Zane called, but Thora snatched my phone and answered it herself. When the call ended, she smiled and said, "He suggested we all go out to eat together today." I felt disappointed that the meal I'd prepared wouldn't be eaten, but staying home alone with Thora was even more difficult. We went to the restaurant, and after waiting about 10 minutes, Zane arrived. "You finished work early," his mother said. "Well, my wife and my mom were waiting for me, so I did my best to finish quickly," Zane replied with a smile. My, what a good boy you are," my mother-in-law added, beaming. As I looked over the menu, Zane leaned over and whispered, "I'm sorry about my mom." I smiled and replied, "It's okay now that you're here." Thora, oblivious to our exchange, kept ordering more and more food. She never paid for anything whenever we ate out together. Watching her greediness, I couldn't help but lose my appetite. When we returned home after dinner, my mother-in-law asked, "Is the mattress in the usual room?" I was surprised that she was trying to spend the night as if it were her own home, but I didn't have enough energy left to argue. I laid out the mattress in the room Thora uses when she stays over and prepared a bath for her. In my mind, I told myself that tomorrow she would leave. Somehow, with my remaining strength, I got ready for bed. As I was lying on my back, Zane came into the bedroom. "I'm sorry for making you so exhausted because of my mom," he said, patting my head before lying down beside me. After that, I quickly took a bath and fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up to hear Thora say something unbelievable. "I'm planning to stay here for about 4 days because life here is so comfortable." I couldn't keep my mouth shut. I thought Zane would be just as shocked, but when I looked at him, he appeared happy. "Well, it would be good if you were here, Mom," he said. "It would reduce the burden of Paula's housework." "What do you think, Paula?" "You're right, I guess," I replied, though I was clearly unhappy. It no longer felt like my home where I could relax, because Thora decided to stay longer than expected. Initially, I believed it would only be 4 days, but each day dragged on endlessly. By the third day, I was completely drained, both mentally and physically, and even came down with a fever. I mustered the courage to ask Thora to leave, saying, "I don't want you to risk catching my cold." Thankfully, she agreed, and after she left, my health started to improve little by little. In difficult moments, I often found comfort in looking at the jewelry my late mother had left me. Those pieces always brought me a sense of peace and joy. She had passed away just before my wedding, leaving me a few pieces of jewelry with the words, "Keep these as a good luck charm." They made me feel safe, as if my mom were still with me. However, when I went to retrieve them one day, I noticed that some were missing. I immediately remembered being burglarized twice before marrying Zane. Fortunately, I wasn't home during those incidents, but money had been stolen. Because of those experiences, I had installed security cameras in several parts of the house, including the room where I kept the jewelry. I decided to check the footage. To my shock, the video revealed someone rummaging through the drawer where the jewelry was stored. Feeling uneasy, I called my dad for advice. Over the phone, my dad advised, "Start by addressing the issue of Thora showing up unannounced." Later that day, when Zane came home, he found me sitting in the dimly lit room. "Why are you sitting in the dark? Let me turn on the light," he said, flipping the switch. The sudden brightness stung my eyes, but I steeled myself and said, "Zane, ever since we got married, I've been uncomfortable with Thora coming over without notice." He shrugged dismissively. "She's family. What's the big deal?" he said, clearly uninterested. "I'm really tired. Can we talk about this later?" His indifference hit a nerve, and I couldn't hold back anymore. "My mom mattered too, didn't she? But if you keep dismissing my feelings, maybe we shouldn't be married at all," I said sharply. "Fine, let's get a divorce then," he snapped, clearly not expecting me to stand my ground. "Do you even realize that Thora's unannounced visits are the reason I got sick? She may be my mother-in-law, but she's still a stranger to me. Could you live with a stranger for days on end?" I demanded. Zane hesitated before finally agreeing to involve his parents in a discussion. When his parents arrived, I explained the situation. "Thora often comes over without notice and stays for several days, but there's more to this," I added, preparing to show them the footage. Before I could play the video, Cashton, my father-in-law, interrupted. "Thora, have you been spending a lot of time at their house recently?" he asked pointedly. Thora looked uncomfortable, but admitted, "I was lonely at home and worried about my son." Cashton turned to me with a deeply apologetic expression. "I'm so sorry for not addressing this sooner. Thora won't trouble you anymore." "Please don't worry, Paula," he said sincerely. Feeling somewhat relieved, I played the footage. As soon as it showed Thora rifling through my drawer, Zane's face turned pale. "Mom!" he exclaimed, stunned. Thora panicked and tried to leave the room, but Cashton blocked her way. "What on earth were you doing?" he demanded. I'm sorry," Thora stammered. "I was lonely and didn't know what else to do." "That doesn't give you the right to invade someone's privacy or steal from them," I shouted, my frustration boiling over. "Paula, calm down," Zane interjected, attempting to de-escalate. "Maybe she just acted on impulse." I glared at him. "You can't keep making excuses for her, Zane. She stole something precious from me, and I can't just overlook that," I retorted firmly. "This is theft, plain and simple. And Zane, your mother's actions are undeniable." After my words, my husband hesitated, unable to defend her any further. Cashton, breaking the tense silence, added, "Paula, I deeply regret everything that's happened, especially Thora's theft. You shouldn't have to be part of a family that has wronged you like this. Please proceed with a divorce. I'll take Thora to the police once it's finalized." To my shock, he pulled divorce papers out of his bag. "Cashton, are you sure about this?" I asked, surprised. "Yes, this needs to end," he said resolutely. Realizing there was no other way forward, I replied, "I can't stay married to someone who doesn't support me as his wife and instead defends a criminal." Under Cashton's watchful eye, Zane and I signed the divorce papers. Tears streamed down Zane's face, though I couldn't tell if they were from regret or something else. "Once these papers are filed, I'll take Thora to the police with the evidence," Cashton said firmly. Turning to Thora, he asked, "What did you do with the stolen items?" "I sold them," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. How could you do such a thing?" I said, my voice full of disbelief and anger. "I'm sorry, Paula. I don't know what else to say," Zane muttered, unable to meet my eyes. "What I want most is a genuine apology from Thora, but it seems she's unwilling to give one," I continued coldly. "Cashton, shall we go file the papers?" After filing for divorce, I left the house and stayed at my parents' place that night. The next day, I took the day off to pack my belongings while Zane was at work. 2 weeks later, the house we had purchased together was sold. A month later, Thora was convicted of theft. During the investigation, it came to light that she had sold the stolen jewelry to a friend at half its market value, which added fraud to her charges. The case made headlines in the local newspaper. Zane's parents' house became a target for public outrage, with graffiti labeling them as thieves and fraudsters. Reporters swarmed their home, and the neighborhood turned against them. When I heard about the turmoil, I asked my father to help Kashtan, who had shown me kindness. To my surprise, my father said, "I see potential in him. I'll hire him as my secretary and arrange housing to help him stay away from Zane." This decision gave me some peace of mind. Meanwhile, Zane faced harassment at work, where his colleagues labeled him the son of a criminal. In frustration, he lashed out, injuring several co-workers with scissors. Although his company initially supported him due to his good track record, they eventually transferred him to a tough subcontractor in the countryside. Struggling to adapt, Zane quit his job and returned to his parents' home, where he spent his days eating, sleeping, and playing video games. Reflecting on everything that happened, I came to see how much I had changed and how those challenges had pushed my life forward.